Good day, everyone, and welcome to Mathematica from Scratch. In this introductory episode, I'm going to just introduce some of the basic features, calculator-type features, that Mathematica has that'll just help you get started in using this piece of software. I'm using Mathematica on a Raspberry Pi 400 here, and in my opinion, this is the killer app for the Raspberry Pi. The power that Mathematica brings you as a user is just phenomenal, and the fact that it comes free with the Raspberry Pi is just a wonderful opportunity for all of us, courtesy of Wolfram Research. My name is Geoff Steeves, and I'm a physics professor at the University of Victoria. I've been using Mathematica for almost 20 years now professionally, and I started using it on a Next computer system many years ago now. So with that introduction out of the way, what I'd like to do is just go ahead. I'm going to launch Mathematica on my Raspberry Pi here. We're going to go through some basic calculator functions, and in later videos we'll get into more advanced calculator functions, graphing, vectors, and so on. But for today, I just want to introduce you a little bit to the user interface and the way we enter information into Mathematica. So to find Mathematica, we're just going to go to Programming here in Mathematica, and we're going to launch it. Once we have launched it, we can go into the settings and change it to light mode or dark mode. I happen to prefer this dark mode functionality. I'm going to increase the magnification so that I can see what I'm doing really easily here. And what I want to do now is just go over some real basics of how do we get started using Mathematica, just as a simple calculator. So what's maybe the simplest equation we can enter in is 1 plus 1. And if I hit enter, something actually unexpected happens. We get no answer. Why is that? Well, it turns out in Mathematica, you're able to enter a whole bunch of calculations in it at once. So we can go what's 1 plus 1, what's 2 plus 6, what's 3 plus 7. Enter in all those equations, and in order to evaluate these equations, in order to get the answers, rather than hitting enter, we just have to hit the shift key and then enter. And when we do this, it's going to actually evaluate all three of these equations. So go ahead and do that. And 1 plus 1 is 2, 2 plus 6 is 8, 3 plus 7 is 10. So shift enter anytime you want it to do a calculation. But if you want to just enter in a whole bunch of calculations first, you can use the enter key to do that. Okay, so with that, we have our basic calculator operations, right? We have add, subtract, multiply, and divide. And we can enter in a whole bunch of, we can just do a long set of terms to combine together and evaluate it at the end. So let's say we have 10 plus 2 plus 7 times 3, okay, plus 2 or something like that. If we want to evaluate this, we're going to hit enter. We're going to get 10 plus 2 plus 2, 14, plus 21, and we get 35 as the output of that. A little trick here, if we want to do something with the output, if we want to use that 35 and divide it by 7, for instance, we can use the percent key. So if we go percent, that takes the last answer and uses it. So we can go percent divided by 7, and we're going to get 5. Now, if I want to do something else with that answer, output number 4 here, I can also go percent 4 times 2. That would be 35 times 2. We should get 70, and there we have it. Okay? So this is a way that we can do adding and subtracting. What about multiplication with order of operations? What if we have to worry about that? Well, let's go to multiply by something in brackets and see what happens. So if we go 2 times 4 plus 6, okay, what Mathematica should do, because it's in brackets, is add the 4 and the 6 together to get 10, and then multiply by 2 to get 20. And that's indeed what it does. Okay, so that's a little bit how we can use order of operations. Now let's look at division, because there's a little subtlety in here. Let's say we want to take that 20 and divide it by 10 and divide it by 2 to get 1. Okay, so we go 20 divided by 10 times 2, and again we're going to get into trouble here. So let's see how. So what actually happens here is we go 20 divided by 10, is 2, and then it actually multiplies that 2 by 2 to get 4. If we actually want to go 20 divided by 10 times 2, we can use brackets like this, and this should actually give us 1. We can also go 20 divided by 10 divided by 2, and that'll also give us 1. Okay, so that's a little bit about how the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division work. Just a couple more things to show you on this episode. Also on my calculator, I've got a square root button. So how do we do the square root? Well, there's an actual Mathematica command, a function that we can use called the square root function. Mathematica functions always start with a capital letter, and every word that makes up a compound function has a capital letter to begin with it. And the argument of a function uses square brackets. So if I want to go the square root of 16, I can go SQRT with a capital S. I use square brackets around the 16, and with Shift Enter, I can evaluate that and get 4. I can go square root of 100 and evaluate that and get 10. Okay, so that's one way to do square root. There's also a shortcut key that we can use to get the normal square root symbol. If we go Control 2, okay, we can just create a square root symbol. We throw a 16 in there and hit Shift Enter, and we get 4. Okay, so those are a couple different ways to do square roots. We could also do 16, Shift 6 to raise it to some power. And if we raise it to the power of 0.5, we get the square root of that. We can also raise it to the power of 1/2. Just a few different ways to get the square root. Okay, so now that I've shown you that, let's look at how we can raise any number to a power. If we want to go 3 squared, we go 3, Shift 6 to give us that exponential term, 2, and we should get 9, 3 times 3, right? Another way we can do this is use another hotkey, which is 3. If we go Control 6, we can put that exponent up there, 3 squared, evaluate that, and get 9. Okay, so these are some of the basic math functions that we find in a normal calculator. There are palettes which kind of show you some of these commands here. So if I click on Palette, Basic Math Assistant, it's going to bring up some of these commands. So what we could do here is 9 times 2. And if you hit Enter on this keyboard here, it'll actually do that evaluation for you. And it actually uses the nice times symbol instead of the asterisk, which is what we normally use for multiplication. And 8 divided by 2 gives us 4. So these are some of the basic functions that we can use with Mathematica for basic kind of calculations. On the next video, what I'm going to show you is advanced mathematical functions, trigonometric functions, and exponential functions. And then after that, we'll get into some really fun stuff with plotting, 2-dimensional plots and 3-dimensional plots and so on. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and be sure to join me on the next episode. Thank you.